London, 1909. Captain Robert Falcon Scott sits in a cramped office on Victoria Street. The room smells of stale tobacco, coal smoke, and desperation. Outside, the Edwardian era is in full swing. The British Empire covers a quarter of the globe, but inside Scott's mind, the map is shrinking. He is 41 years old. He is a Royal Navy officer, but he is not a wealthy man. He is living on half pay. He has a new wife, Kathleen, a sculptor who is fiercely ambitious for him. They have a baby son, Peter. Scott is a man of contradictions. To the public, he is the owner, the hero of the Discovery expedition, the man who went further south than anyone else. He is the embodiment of British pluck and stamina. But privately, Scott is anxious. He is sentimental. He cries easily. He worries about money constantly. He is planning his return to Antarctica, the Terra Nova expedition. It is billed as a scientific mission. They will study glaciology, biology, and magnetism. But everyone knows the real goal, the South Pole, the last great geographical prize left on Earth. The North Pole has been claimed, or so Cook and Peary say. The South is the only blank spot left on the map. Scott feels the weight of the nation on his shoulders. "We must get there first," he writes in his journal, "for the honor of the country." But he is not alone in this ambition. There is a shadow. Sir Ernest Shackleton, his former subordinate, almost made it a year ago. He turned back just 97 miles from the pole. Scott was jealous. He was relieved Shackleton failed, but terrified that someone else would succeed. And then there are the rumors from Norway. Roald Amundsen, the Viking, the man who conquered the Northwest Passage. Amundsen is silent. He is supposedly heading north, but Scott has a nagging fear, a cold spot in his stomach. He looks at the fundraising ledgers. They are short of money. He looks at the equipment list. He has made a choice that will define his fate. He is not taking hundreds of dogs like the Norwegians would. He is taking ponies, white Manchurian ponies. And he is taking something new, something modern, motor sledges, tractors on ice. Scott believes in technology. He believes in British engineering. He believes that the machine will conquer the blizzard. It is the first tragic miscalculation of a man who trusts systems more than he trusts nature. The Terra Nova is a refitted whaler. She is old, leaky, and smells of seal oil, but she is filled with the best men in the Empire. Scott has selected his team carefully. There is Dr. Edward Wilson, Uncle Bill. Wilson is the soul of the expedition. He is a doctor, an artist, and a zoologist. He is a devout Christian who never complains. Scott loves him like a brother. When Scott's temper flares, and it flares often, Wilson is the only one who can calm him down. Then there is Captain Lawrence Oates, the soldier. Oates is a dragoon, a cavalry officer. He is wealthy, quiet, and cynical. He paid 1,000 pounds of his own money to join the expedition. He is in charge of the ponies. When Oates first sees the ponies Scott bought, his heart sinks. They are old. They are knock-kneed. They are the rejects of the Manchurian glue factories. They are a wretched lot of crocks, Oates writes to his mother. But he doesn't tell Scott. You don't question the owner. And finally, there is Lieutenant Henry Birdie Bowers. Bowers is tiny, 5'4". He has a beak like a nose and endless energy. He is the storekeeper, the organizer. He can calculate rations down to the ounce in his head. He is impervious to cold. He wears a felt hat while others wear fur hoods. These men are not just a crew. They are a brotherhood. They believe in the nobility of the struggle. They believe in man-hauling. This is a peculiarly British obsession. The idea that using dogs is unsporting. That dragging the sledges yourself, harnessing your own body to the load, is more heroic. It is a romantic idea. But Antarctica is not a romantic place. It is a physics equation, calories in versus energy out. And Scott's equation is already unbalanced. October 1910, Melbourne, Australia. The Terra Nova has sailed halfway around the world. The mood is high. They are going to the ice. They are going to do science. Then the bombshell drops. Scott is attending a dinner. He is handed a telegram. He opens it. It is from Madeira. It is signed by Roald Amundsen. The text is short, brutal. Beg leave to inform you Fram proceeding Antarctica. Scott goes pale. The room spins. Amundsen lied. He isn't going north. He is going south, and he is going fast. Amundsen is not doing science. He is not mapping the coastline. He is racing. He has hundreds of Greenland dogs. He has ski champions. He has a single goal, the pole. Scott crumples the telegram. He realizes that his scientific expedition has just turned into a race he didn't want, a race he isn't prepared for. He has ponies that struggle in snow. He has motor sledges that have never been tested in extreme cold, and he has a sense of British fair play that Amundsen does not share. He is a blackguard, Oates mutters. But Scott knows better. Amundsen is a professional. The trip has changed. It is no longer a journey of discovery. It is a journey of defense. They have to defend the pole for the Empire. December 1910. The Southern Ocean. The Terra Nova leaves New Zealand. She is heavily overloaded. On deck, 30 tons of coal in sacks, 33 dogs, and below decks, 19 terrified ponies. They hit a storm. The roaring 40s are bad. The furious 50s are worse. The screaming 60s are hell. The waves are 40 feet high, green walls of water that crash over the ship. The Terra Nova rolls. She rolls far over. She doesn't come back. The coal sacks break loose. They turn into battering rams, sliding across the deck. Water pours into the hold. The pumps clog. Coal dust and oil have formed a sludge balls that block the suction valves. The ship is sinking. Scott stands on the bridge. He is calm. He is always calm in a crisis. It is the waiting that destroys him. Bail, Scott orders. It is a scene from the Middle Ages. The officers of the Royal Navy, the scientists from Cambridge, form a bucket line. They pass buckets of oily, freezing water up from the engine room for 24 hours straight. They are singing sea shanties. They are laughing. But below decks, it is a massacre. The ponies are being thrown against the walls of their stalls. 2 of them die. Oates is in the hold with them, trying to calm them as the ship pitches violently. He holds their heads as they scream. "Poor devils," Oates whispers. They survive the storm, just barely. They break through the pack ice, and then they see it. The Great Ice Barrier, the Ross Ice Shelf. A wall of white ice, 200 feet high, stretching for 500 miles. It is the gateway to the continent. It is beautiful. It is silent. Scott stands at the rail. He looks at the vast whiteness. He feels a sense of destiny. "We have arrived," he says to Wilson. But they have arrived with 2 dead ponies, a leaking ship, and the knowledge that somewhere to the east, the Norwegians are landing too. The race is on, and the clock is ticking. January 1911. Cape Evans. They establish their base. They build a hut, a large wooden structure insulated with seaweed. It is a palace compared to the tents. They unload the motor sledges. Scott watches anxiously as the first sledge is lowered onto the ice. The driver cranks the engine. It roars to life. Scott smiles. This is the future. The machine will haul the supplies. The ponies will haul the rest. The dogs will be support. And the men will ski the final leg. It is a complex, tiered strategy. Amundsen's strategy is simple. Dogs. Only dogs. Within an hour, disaster strikes the British plan. One of the motor sledges breaks through the sea ice. It sinks to the bottom of the bay, gone. Scott watches it disappear into the black water. 1/3 of his mechanical advantage is gone before they have moved a mile. He turns away, his face tight. "Bad luck," he says. "Bad judgment," Oates thinks, but does not say. They have landed. The trip is over. Now begins the depot journey. They have to lay supplies for next year's push. They have to march south, bury food and fuel, and mark the spots. If they fail to lay the depots far enough south, they will die on the return journey. Scott looks at the map. He points to a spot on the barrier. 1-ton depot. "We must place it at the 80 parallel," Scott says. "It is a specific coordinate. It will become the most important coordinate in history. Because in Antarctica, a mile can be the difference between life and death." February 1911. The Great Ice Barrier. The depot journey is the dress rehearsal. The team must march south to cache a ton of food and fuel for the return trip next year. Captain Scott leads the way. The weather is atrocious. Blizzards howl for days. But the real problem is the transport. The ponies are failing. They are sinking into the soft snow up to their bellies. They are sweating in the cold, their sweat turning to ice armor on their flanks. Captain Oates watches them with a grim professional eye. "They are done, sir," Oates tells Scott. "They can't pull this weight in this snow." Scott is frustrated. He hates to see animals suffer, but he needs the supplies laid. They reach latitude 79 degrees 29 minutes south. The plan was to place the depot at 80 degrees south. That is a difference of 31 miles. Scott looks at the ponies. They are trembling. Their eyes are glazed. He looks at the horizon. The wind is picking up. He makes a decision. "We stop here," Scott says. "We build the depot here." Oates hesitates. He is a soldier. He knows that in a retreat, every mile counts. "Sir," Oates says quietly, "if we push them, they might die. But if we don't push them, we might be short on the return." "I will not kill them for 30 miles, Scott snaps. "We build 1-ton depot here." They unload the sledges. They build a cairn of snow blocks. They top it with a black flag. Inside is the fuel, the pemmican, the biscuits, the lifeblood of the return journey. They turn back north. Scott believes he has made a merciful decision. He doesn't know that he has just signed his own death warrant. Those 31 miles, a day and a half of marching, will be the exact distance between life and death a year from now. The return to base is a disaster. They are crossing the sea ice near Hut Point. It is late in the season. The ice is thinning. They settle down for the night. In the darkness, a noise like a cannon shot wakes them. Crack. The sea ice is breaking up. The swell from the ocean is tearing the floes apart. Bertie Bowers, the indomitable lieutenant, is sleeping on a floe with 3 ponies. He wakes up drifting out to sea. He jumps across the widening gaps of black water, leading the terrified horses. Killer whales, orcas, appear. They are intelligent. They see the ponies. They bump the ice from underneath, trying to tip them into the water. Scott watches from the solid shelf ice, helpless. "Get them!" Scott yells. "Jump!" Bowers manages to get 2 ponies to the edge, but the ice is moving too fast. The gaps are too wide. 1 pony falls in. The whales take it instantly. Another pony is stranded on a floe drifting north. Oates grabs an ice axe. "I have to finish him, sir," Oates says. He kills the pony to save it from the whales. It is a bloodbath. They lose 3 of their best transport animals in a single night. Scott writes in his diary, "It is a heavy blow." Oates is silent. He smokes his pipe. He knows that the ponies were their primary advantage over man-hauling. Now, the team is weaker. And the Norwegians presumably still have their dogs. April 1911. Cape Evans. The sun sets. It will not rise again for 4 months. The Antarctic winter begins. Outside, the temperature drops to 60 below zero. The wind screams at hurricane force, burying the hut in snowdrifts. Inside, it is a Victorian gentleman's club. The hut is divided by a wall of crates. Officers on one side, men on the other. But the discipline is relaxed. They have a gramophone. They play Caruso records. They have a pianola. Dr. Edward Wilson paints watercolors of the Aurora Australis. Ponting, the photographer, develops his glass plates in a dark room that smells of chemicals. Scott sits at his desk. He writes. He is a moody leader. Some days he is charming, full of enthusiasm for the science. Other days he is dark, brooding, snapping at anyone who makes noise. The men call him the owner. They respect him, but they walk on eggshells around him. The tension of the race is always there. Where is Amundsen? Scott wonders aloud. They imagine the Norwegians camped on the ice to the east. Scott tries to distract himself with science. Science is the justification, Scott tells the men. If we don't get the pole, we must get the knowledge. We must bring back rocks. We must bring back data. It is a noble sentiment. But in a race for survival, science is heavy baggage. July 1911, midwinter. Dr. Wilson has a theory. He believes the emperor penguin is the most primitive bird on Earth. He believes that by studying their embryos, he can find the evolutionary link between dinosaurs and birds. But emperors breed in the dead of winter. Their rookery is at Cape Crozier, 60 miles away. Wilson decides to go get 3 eggs. He takes Bowers and a young, wealthy adventurer named Apsley Cherry Garrard. It is a journey into madness. It is pitch black, 24 hours a day. The temperature hits minus 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Their clothes freeze as hard as iron. To get into their sleeping bags, they have to thaw their way in for an hour, shouting with pain as the ice cracks. Their teeth shatter from the cold. They have to relay their sledges because the snow is too soft, walking every mile 3 times. It takes them weeks to travel 60 miles. They reach the rookery. They get the 3 eggs. Then a blizzard hits. It blows their tent away. For 2 days they lie in their sleeping bags, exposed to the hurricane, waiting to die. They sing hymns. They tell jokes. Miraculously, they find the tent caught on a rock a mile away. They survive. They stumble back to Cape Evans looking like ghosts. Their faces are scarred by frostbite. Their eyes are wild. Scott looks at them in horror. "But look, sir," Wilson says, holding up the 3 frozen eggs. "We got them." It is a testament to their courage, but it is also a testament to their priorities. They risked 3 of their strongest men for bird eggs months before the race to the pole even began. They are exhausted before the starting gun. October 1911. The sun returns. The base comes alive. The motor sledges are dug out of the drifts. Mechanics work on the engines with frozen fingers. The remaining ponies are exercised. Oates has nursed them through the winter, but they are old. They have emphysema. They are not fit for the barrier. Scott ignores this. He is focused on the logistics. He creates a complex pyramid scheme of support parties. Teams will haul supplies, drop them, and turn back. Only the final team, the polar party, will go all the way. But who will be in that party? Scott keeps it a secret. Every man wants to go. Every man wants the glory. Scott watches them. He watches Taff Evans, the giant petty officer, strong as an ox. He watches Bill Wilson, the doctor, steady as a rock. He watches Bertie Bowers, the navigator, indefatigable. He watches Oates, the soldier, tough but limping on an old war wound in his leg. Scott writes the plan. The motors will leave first, then the ponies, then the dogs. It is a staggered start. It relies on timing. It relies on weather. It relies on luck. Scott stands outside the hut. He looks south. The barrier stretches into infinity, white, cold, indifferent. Somewhere out there, Amundsen is already moving. Scott feels the cold spot in his stomach grow. "We must go," Scott whispers. "For the king." The waiting is over. The march begins. October 24th, 1911. The southern journey begins with a roar. The motor sledges lead the way. They are supposed to haul the heavy supplies across the great ice barrier, saving the ponies for the glacier. Captain Scott watches them go with pride. "The future of polar travel," he writes. But Antarctica is not a laboratory. It is a graveyard for machinery. Within 50 miles, the first motor breaks down. A cylinder head cracks in the extreme cold. The mechanics try to fix it with frozen fingers, metal sticking to their skin. It is hopeless. A few miles later, the second motor dies. An axle snaps on the rough ice. The dream of mechanized travel ends in a cloud of steam and cursing. The men harness themselves to the heavy sledges. They become beasts of burden before they have even left sight of the coast. "It is a bit hard," Lieutenant Evans writes, "to be a horse." They drag the supplies to the rendezvous point. They are exhausted, sweating in their windproofs. Scott sees them. He sees the abandoned machines. He doesn't say much. He just nods. "We shall proceed with the ponies," Scott says. It is the first crack in the plan. The technology has failed. Now, they must rely on flesh and blood. December 9th, 1911. The gateway. They have crossed the barrier. 400 miles of flat, white nothingness. They stand at the foot of the Beardmore Glacier. It is a frozen river of ice, 100 miles long, rising 10,000 feet to the polar plateau. It is a chaotic jumble of crevasses, pressure ridges, and blue ice. The ponies cannot go further. They are done. They are emaciated. They have been fed on compressed fodder bricks, but the cold has burned every ounce of fat off their bodies. They stand with their heads down, icicles hanging from their muzzles. Captain Oates walks among them. He pats their necks. Nobby, Chinaman, Snatcher. He knows what comes next. "It is time, sir," Oates says to Scott. Scott turns away. He cannot watch. Oates takes his Webley revolver. He leads the ponies one by one behind a snow wall. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoes off the mountains. It is a massacre. They call it Shambles Camp. But it is also a harvest. They butcher the meat. They will eat pony curry for the next few weeks. It is fresh meat to fight off the scurvy. But as they eat, the mood is somber. The ponies were their friends. Now they are fuel. And now there is nothing pulling the sledges but men. 12 men, 3 sledges, heavy loads. They look up at the glacier. It looks like a stairway to the moon. "Harness up," Scott orders. The climb up the Beardmore is hell. They are hauling 200 pounds per man. The surface is soft snow. They sink to their knees. It is a rhythm of agony. Pull, step, gasp, pull. Petty Officer Taff Evans is the strongest man in the team. He is a giant, a Welshman with hands like shovels. He pulls like a locomotive. But on the glacier, something happens to Evans. He cuts his hand while shortening a sledge runner. It is a small cut. In England, it would heal in 2 days. Here, it doesn't heal. It festers. The cold prevents the cells from knitting. The lack of fresh vitamins weakens his immune system. Evans hides it. He wraps a rag around it. "Just a scratch, sir," he tells Dr. Wilson. But Wilson sees the fatigue in Evans's eyes. The big man is burning out faster than the smaller men. They reach the Cloudmaker, a massive mountain halfway up. They are losing weight rapidly. Scott is driving them hard. He is terrified of Amundsen. Every time they stop for lunch, Scott scans the horizon with his binoculars. "Do you see anything, Bill?" Scott asks. "Nothing, sir. Just ice." They reach the top of the glacier. December 20th, 1911. They are at 8,000 feet. The air is thin. They have reached the plateau. Now, Scott has to make the final selection. January 3rd, 1912. They are 150 miles from the pole. There are 8 men left, 2 sledges. The support team must turn back. Scott calls them into his tent. He has made his decision. "The final party will be myself, Dr. Wilson, Captain Oates, and Petty Officer Evans." That is 4 men. A standard sledge team. The tent holds 4. The rations are packed in units of 4. The cooking pot cooks for 4. But then, Scott looks at Bertie Bowers. Bowers is the smallest man, but he is the strongest navigator. He has infinite energy. Scott changes his mind. "Bowers," Scott says, "you will come too." It is a catastrophic error. 5 men. They have a 4-man tent. They will have to sleep squeezed together, 1 man halfway out in the cold vestibule. They have rations for 4. They will have to split them 5 ways. And worst of all, they have 4 pairs of skis. Bowers had left his skis at the last depot because he thought he was turning back. Now, the 5th man will have to walk on foot while the others ski. It will slow the whole team down. The supporting party turns back. Tom Crean and Teddy Evans weep as they shake hands. "Good luck, sir," Crean says. "Bring us the pole." They watch the 5 men ski south. 5 black dots on a white sheet. Logistically doomed before they take a step. The plateau is flat, cold, and endless. The altitude is 10,000 feet. They are hypoxic. Their brains are starved of oxygen. They are starving. The rations, pemmican, dried meat and fat, and biscuits, amount to about 4,500 calories a day. They are burning 7,000. Their bodies are eating their own muscle, but they have race fever. They are close. January 10th, January 12th, January 14th. Every day they measure the latitude. 88 south, 89 south. They are making good time. Scott is euphoric. "We are going to do it," he whispers to Wilson at night. "The Norwegians aren't here." They scan the snow for dog tracks. Nothing. The ice is pristine. The wind scours the surface into sastrugi, waves of ice that look like a frozen ocean. They navigate through the waves. Taff Evans is struggling. The cut on his hand is infected. He is losing his fingernails, but he pulls. He knows he is going to the pole. He is going to be a hero. Oates is limping. His old war wound, a bullet in the leg from the Boer War, is aching in the cold, but they push on. "Only 27 miles, Scott writes. "It is in the bag." January 16th, 1912. The weather is clear. The sun is bright. They are marching well. Bowers has the sharpest eyes. He stops. "Sir," Bowers says, "there is something ahead." Scott stops. He raises his binoculars. "A cairn?" Scott asks. "It looks like a cairn," Wilson says. They ski closer. Scott's heart is pounding. Maybe it is a natural ice formation. Maybe it is a sastrugi shadow. They get closer. It is black. A black flag tied to a sledge runner, sticking out of the snow. Beside it, the chaotic tracks of many dogs and ski tracks. Scott lowers the binoculars. His face goes gray. The light leaves his eyes. "The Norwegians," Scott whispers. "They have forestalled us." The men stand in silence. The wind whistles around the black flag. It is the sound of absolute defeat. They have marched 900 miles. They have dragged sledges for months. They have killed their ponies, and they are second. "Great God!" Scott cries out. "This is an awful place and terrible enough for us to have labored to it without the reward of priority." They camp right there. The mood is funereal. "It is a pity," Oates says simply. "It is a great pity." January 17th, 1912. They march the final few miles to the mathematical pole. They find a tent, Polheim, home of the pole. It is a small, neat tent left by Roald Amundsen. Inside, they find equipment, reindeer skin clothing, a sextant, and a letter, addressed to Captain Scott. Scott opens it with trembling hands. "Dear Captain Scott, as you probably are the first to reach this area after us, I will ask you to kindly forward this letter to the King of Norway. If any of the gear in the tent can be of any use to you, please do not hesitate to use it. With kind regards, I wish you a safe return. Roald Amundsen." It is the ultimate humiliation. Amundsen has not only beaten him, he has turned Scott into his postman. He is asking Scott to carry the proof of his own defeat back to civilization. Scott folds the letter. He puts it in his pocket. They plant the Union Jack. It flaps listlessly in the wind. They take a photograph. The photo is famous. 5 men standing in the snow. They are not smiling. They look like dead men walking. Their faces are black with frostbite. Their eyes are hollow. They are standing at the bottom of the whirl, and they realize with a terrifying clarity that the race was the easy part. The race is over. Now the retreat begins, and they are 900 miles from home, and the season is turning. January 19th, 1912. They turn their backs on the pole. They turn their backs on the Norwegian flag snapping in the wind. Now, the only thing that matters is the wind at their backs. "We have turned," Captain Scott writes. "Now for the run home and a desperate struggle. I wonder if we can do it." It is a chilling admission. The owner is doubting. They have 900 miles to go. They are dragging 2 heavy sledges. The temperature is minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. But the real enemy is the altitude. They are still on the polar plateau, 10,000 feet up. They are starving. The rations are calculated to the ounce, but they are burning twice what they eat. And one man is failing fast. Petty Officer Taff Evans, the giant, the strongest man in the Royal Navy, the man who pulled the heaviest loads on the way up. Now he is lagging. His hand, the cut he got weeks ago, is not healing. It is gangrenous. His fingernails are falling off. He is hiding it. He keeps his gloves on. But Dr. Wilson sees him stumbling. "He is dull," Wilson whispers to Scott. "He is not all there." Evans is suffering from a concussion. He fell on the ice days ago. His brain is swelling. He starts to ask strange questions. "Are we going to the depot, sir?" he asks, when the depot is clearly miles away. Scott watches him with growing dread. In the brutal arithmetic of polar travel, the slowest man sets the pace, and Evans is becoming an anchor. February 4th, 1912. They reach the top of the Beardmore Glacier. Going down should be easier than going up. Gravity is on their side, but the Beardmore is a monster. It is shattered ice, crevasses hidden by thin snow bridges, blue ice as hard as steel. They have to navigate through the Cloudmaker disturbance. Evans falls again. He hits his head on the ice. He stands up, dazed. His eyes are unfocused. "I'm all right, sir," he mumbles. But he isn't. He starts to take off his gloves. "My hands are hot," he says. "It is minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit." "Put them back on, man," Oates yells. "You'll lose your fingers." Evans looks at his hands. He looks at Oates. He doesn't seem to understand. They camp that night in the middle of the icefall. It is terrifying. The glacier groans and shifts beneath them. Evans is the cook for the week. He forgets to put the salt in the hoosh. He drops the pemmican. The other men watch him. They are hungry. They are angry. But mostly, they are scared. Because if Evans can't pull, they have to carry him. And they cannot carry a 200-pound man on a sledge over a glacier. February 17th, 1912. They are at the bottom of the glacier. They are almost onto the great ice barrier. Evans is far behind. Scott, Wilson, Oates, and Bowers stop for lunch. They wait. Evans doesn't appear. They scan the white horizon. Nothing. "I'll go back," Scott says. He skis back up the track. He finds Evans on his knees in the snow. His clothes are disheveled. His hands are bare. He is crawling. "What is it, Taff?" Scott asks gently. Evans looks up. His face is a mask of frostbite and confusion. "I don't know," Evans says. "I think I fainted." Scott tries to help him up. Evans collapses. He goes into convulsions. Scott calls for the others. They bring the sledge back. They lift the giant onto the sledge. He is heavy. Dead weight. They drag him to the tent. They bring him inside. Dr. Wilson checks his pulse. It is thready. Evans is in a coma. They sit around him. They drink their tea. They wait. At 12:30 a.m., Evans stops breathing. He dies quietly. The silence in the tent is absolute. There is grief, yes. Evans was their friend. He was a legend. But underneath the grief, there is a terrible, shameful relief. Scott writes it in his diary that night. "It is a terrible thing to lose a companion, but to the rest of us, it is a deliverance." They bury him in the snow at the foot of the glacier. They build a cairn. They stand there for a moment. 4 men now. They are down to 1 sledge. They harness up. "We must go," Scott says. They step onto the barrier. They think the worst is over. They think the flat ice will be easy. They are wrong. February 20th, 1912. The Great Ice Barrier is usually manageable in late summer. Temperatures should be around -10 degrees Fahrenheit or -20 degrees Fahrenheit. But 1912 is a freak year. The temperature drops like a stone. -30 degrees Fahrenheit, -40 degrees Fahrenheit, -47 degrees Fahrenheit. During the day, at night, it hits -60 degrees Fahrenheit. The surface of the snow changes. At these temperatures, snow loses its slickness. It becomes like sand. The sledge runners don't glide. They grind. It feels like pulling concrete over sandpaper. The friction is immense. "It is like pulling a dead weight," Bowers says. They are covering 5 miles a day. They need to cover 10 to reach the next depot before the food runs out. The math is turning against them. And the cold is finding the cracks in their armor. Captain Oates is limping. His old war wound, the bullet in his thigh, is reacting to the cold. The circulation is poor, but worse, his feet are freezing. He changes his socks every night, but the sweat freezes inside his boots during the day. His toes are turning black. Gangrene. He doesn't say anything. He is a soldier. He marches. But every step is agony. Scott sees it. Wilson sees it. They stop talking about getting home. They start talking about the next depot. The horizon shrinks. March 5th, 1912. They are 300 miles from base, but they are only 40 miles from 1-ton depot. 1 ton. The big one. The one with all the food and fuel. If they can reach 1 ton, they are saved. But Oates is failing. His feet are swollen to the size of footballs. He cannot put his boots on. He has to slice the boots open to get his feet inside. It takes him an hour every morning just to get dressed. The others wait for him. They stand in the freezing wind, shivering, burning precious calories, waiting for the soldier to stand up. Oates knows he is killing them. He knows that every hour they wait for him is an hour they aren't marching toward the food. He asks Wilson for opium. "Bill," Oates whispers, "give me the tablets. If it gets too bad, I want to end it." Wilson refuses. He is a Christian. He believes suicide is a sin, but he gives Oates a tube of morphine. "For the pain," Wilson says. Oates puts it in his pocket. He marches, he falls, he crawls. He is dragging his leg like a dead branch. Scott watches him with a mixture of pity and horror. Scott knows the rules of the sea. You don't leave a man behind. But Scott also knows the rules of the ice. If you don't leave him, you all die. The tension in the tent is unbearable. They are all thinking it. No one is saying it. March 16th, 1912 or March 17th, the dates are blurring. It is Oates' birthday. He is 32. Or maybe it was yesterday. They are trapped in a blizzard. They have almost no food left, a few biscuits, a scraping of pemmican. The fuel is gone. They cannot melt snow for water. They are dehydrated, starving, and freezing. Oates wakes up. He hoped he wouldn't. He hoped he would die in his sleep. He looks at his feet. They are black blocks of ice. He looks at his friends. Scott is writing in his diary, his fingers wrapped in rags. Wilson is staring at the stove, trying to coax a flame from the last drop of spirit. Bowers is checking the meteorological log, ever the scientist. Oates realizes he has one gift left to give them. It is not a gift of hope. It is a gift of chance. If he is gone, they might make the depot. They are only 20 miles away, maybe less. He sits up. He struggles to his feet. It takes him 5 minutes to stand. The pain is blinding. He doesn't put his boots on. He is in his socks. He looks at Scott. Scott looks back. He sees the resolve in the soldier's eyes. Scott doesn't stop him. He can't. To stop him would be to sentence them all to death. To let him go is to commit a sin. It is the impossible choice. Oates moves to the tent door. He unlaces the toggle. The wind screams outside, a wall of white drift, minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. He turns back to the men. He speaks. His voice is calm, conversational, like he is excusing himself from a dinner table in London. I am just going outside and maybe some time. He steps out. The tent flap snaps shut. Scott, Wilson, and Bowers sit in silence. They listen. They hear the wind. They hear the ice hitting the canvas. They do not hear footsteps. Oates walks into the blizzard. He walks until he can't walk anymore. He falls. He lets the cold take him. It is an act of supreme bravery. A soldier, sacrificing himself for his squad. Inside the tent, Scott writes the epitaph. We knew that poor Oates was walking to his death. It was the act of a brave man and an English gentleman. They wait for an hour, then they pack up. They are now 3. They are lighter. They have a chance. We must make it, Scott says. For Oates. They harness up. They march north, toward One Ton Depot, toward life. March 17th, 1912. Captain Oates is gone. The tent feels bigger. There is more room, but the space is filled with a heavy, suffocating silence. There are 3 men left. Captain Scott, Dr. Wilson, Bertie Bowers. They are a strange trio. Scott is the leader, the writer, the man carrying the weight of the failure. Wilson is the saint. He is dying of scurvy. His legs are purple and swollen. He can hardly stand. Yet he is still sketching the sunset. He is still thanking God for the day. Bowers is the unbreakable one. He is the only one without severe frostbite. Despite having no fur sleeping bag, he is still optimistic. We will make it, sir, Bowers says. Just a few more marches. They pack the sledge. It is lighter now. They harness up. They step out into the wind. It is minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The surface is like sandpaper. The sledge runners screech against the ice crystals. They pull. They manage 3 miles. 3 miles in 8 hours. They camp. They drink their tea. They eat a biscuit. They are burning 6,000 calories. They are eating 3,000. Their bodies are consuming their own organs. Scott looks at his feet. The toes are black. The heel is raw. My right foot has gone, Scott writes. Amputation is the least I can hope for now. He knows what that means. If he loses a foot, he cannot pull. If he cannot pull, he must be left behind. But Wilson and Bowers will not leave him, just as they would not leave Oates. They are locked in a pact of mutual destruction. March 19th, 1912. They wake up. They force their frozen boots onto their feet. It takes an hour of agony. They strike the tent. They march. They are moving slowly, stumbling, falling. Bowers is navigating. He is the strongest. He checks the sledge meter. He checks the map. "We are close, sir," Bowers shouts over the wind. They are aiming for 1-ton depot. The depot with the food, the fuel, the seal meat. If they reach it, they live. They march until noon. The wind picks up. The drift becomes a wall of white. They cannot see their feet. "Camp," Scott orders. "We must camp." They pitch the tent. Bowers checks his calculations. He looks at Scott. His face is tragic. "How far?" Scott asks. 11 miles, Bowers says. 11 miles. That is a morning's march on a good day. That is 3 hours for a healthy man. But for 3 dying men dragging a sledge in a blizzard, it is an ocean. And then, the irony hits Scott like a physical blow. He remembers the depot journey a year ago. He remembers Oates telling him to push the ponies further south. He remembers stopping at 79 degrees 29 minutes south instead of 80 degrees. He remembers the 30 miles he didn't march to save the ponies. If he had marched those 30 miles, then 1-ton depot would be here. They would be inside it right now. They would be eating hot seal meat. They would be safe. His mercy a year ago has become his executioner today. March 20th, 1912. They wake up ready to make a dash for it. "We will leave the gear," Scott says. "We will take only food and walk." It is a desperate plan, but it is their only chance. Bowers opens the tent flap. He is hit by a wall of snow, a blizzard, not a gale, a full Antarctic hurricane. The wind is screaming at 60 miles per hour. The temperature has dropped to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Visibility is 0. If they step outside, they will lose the tent in 10 seconds and freeze to death in a minute. "We have to wait," Wilson says. They close the flap. They get back into their sleeping bags. They wait for the wind to drop. March 21st. The wind screams. March 22nd. The wind screams. They have 2 days of food left. They have barely any fuel. They eat cold pemmican. They melt snow by holding it in their mouths because they can't waste the spirit lamp. Scott writes. His diary becomes his confessional. "The weather is altogether against us," he writes. "No one in the world would have expected the temperatures and surfaces which we encountered at this time of the year." He is right. It is a freak weather event, a cold snap that happens once in 50 years. But nature doesn't care about statistics. March 23rd, 1912. The fuel is gone. They cannot cook. They cannot melt water. Dehydration sets in. Their tongues swell. Their lips crack and bleed. Wilson, the doctor, has a stash of medical supplies. He opens his bag. He takes out a tube. Opium tablets. Oates had asked for them. Wilson had refused. Now he offers them to Scott and Bowers. "It would be easier," Wilson whispers. "Just go to sleep." Scott looks at the tablets. He looks at his friends. He shakes his head. "No," Scott says. "We will die naturally. We will stick it out to the end." Bowers nods. "We are Christians, sir." Wilson puts the tube away. They divide the last of the food. A few crumbs of biscuit, a sliver of pemmican. They eat it slowly, savoring the taste of life. Outside, the blizzard is a constant roaring monster. It buries the tent in drift. Inside, the air is foul, cold, damp. They lie in their bags. They talk. Not about the pole, not about the race. They talk about home. Wilson talks about his wife, Oriana, about the birds in Gloucestershire. Bowers talks about his mother in India. Scott talks about his son, Peter. "I want him to be a strenuous man," Scott says. "I want him to know nature." They are saying goodbye. March 29th, 1912. 9 days in the blizzard. They are weak. They can hardly lift their pencils. Scott knows this is the end. He pulls out his journals. He starts to write the letters. He writes to Mrs. Wilson, "If this letter reaches you, Bill and I will have gone out together. We are very near it now, and I should like you to know how splendid he was at the end, everlastingly cheerful and ready to sacrifice himself for others." He writes to Mrs. Bowers, "I write when we are very near the end of our journey, and I am finishing it in company with 2 gallant, noble gentlemen. One of these is your son. He has come to be one of my closest and soundest friends." He writes to his own wife, Kathleen, "Make the boy interested in natural history if you can. It is better than games. Try and make him a strenuous man. I had to force myself into being a strenuous man, as you know." And then he writes to the public, the message to the public. It is a defense, an explanation, a plea. The causes of the disaster are not due to faulty organization, but to misfortune in all risks which had to be undertaken. We are weak, riding is difficult, but for my own sake I do not regret this journey, which has shown that Englishmen can endure hardships, help one another, and meet death with as great a fortitude as ever in the past. His handwriting is deteriorating. The letters are jagged. He is freezing to death as he writes. March 29th, late evening. Dr. Wilson dies first. He passes quietly in his sleep. The saint of the expedition simply stops breathing. Bertie Bowers dies next. He is curled up in his bag. He never gave up hope until the very end. Scott is the last one left. He is lying between his 2 best friends. He is the leader. He has to be the last to leave the ship. He opens his sleeping bag. He unbuttons his tunic. He wraps his arm around Wilson. It is a gesture of profound brotherhood. Even in death, he wants to be close to Uncle Bill. He takes his diary. He writes the final entry. "We shall stick it out to the end, but we are getting weaker, of course, and the end cannot be far. It seems a pity, but I do not think I can write more." He signs it, R. Scott. Then a postscript. His handwriting is a scrawl. "Last entry. For God's sake, look after our people." The pencil drops from his frozen fingers. He closes his eyes. The wind howls outside. The tent flaps. The cold creeps in. It stops his heart. The tent becomes a tomb. 11 miles away, the flag of 1 Ton Depot snaps in the wind, marking a cache of food that will never be eaten. The race is over. The silence of Antarctica reclaims its own. October 29th, 1912. The Antarctic winter is over. The sun has returned. For 8 months, the men at Cape Evans have waited. They knew something was wrong. Scott and the Polar Party should have returned in March. They didn't. The remaining men, led by the surgeon Dr. Edward Atkinson, spent the winter in a state of suspended grief. They kept the routine. They fed the mules. They conducted science. But the empty bunks haunted them. Now it is spring. Atkinson organizes a search party. 11 men, 7 mules, 2 dog teams. They are not going to save anyone. They know that. They are going to find the dead. They march south on the Great Ice Barrier. They follow the old tracks. They find the depots still standing. They reach 1 Ton Depot. The food is there. The fuel is there. Untouched. Atkinson's heart sinks. If they didn't make 1 ton, they died on the ice. They continue south. The weather is clear. The white horizon is endless. Trygve Gran, the Norwegian ski expert Scott hired, is on his skis. He is scouting ahead. He sees something. a dark shape against the white snow. It doesn't look like a cairn. It looks like a tent. He skis closer. It is almost buried in drift. Only the top foot of the bamboo poles is visible. Gran stops. He takes off his hat. He waves to the others. "I have found them," Gran says. November 12, 1912. The search party gathers around the tent. They are afraid to touch it. They dig away the snow. They uncover the door flap. Atkinson enters first. The air inside is frozen still. He sees Scott in the center, Wilson on his left, Bowers on his right. They look like they are sleeping. Scott has thrown back the flaps of his sleeping bag. His arm is flung across Wilson. It is a protective gesture. Even in death, the owner was trying to comfort his friend. Atkinson checks the pockets. He finds the letters. He finds the diaries. He reads the final entry. "For God's sake, look after our people." He steps out of the tent. He is weeping. He reads the final message to the men. They stand in the snow, heads bowed. Even the dogs are silent. "It was a near thing," Atkinson says quietly. "They were 11 miles from the depot." 11 miles. The men look north. They can almost see the depot in their minds. It is the cruelest distance in history. Gran turns to Atkinson. "What do we do with them?" Atkinson shakes his head. "We cannot move them," he says. "The sledge is too heavy, and they belong here." They decide to bury them where they lie. They collapse the tent poles. The canvas falls over the bodies. It becomes their shroud. They build a great cairn of snow over the tent, block by block. It takes hours. When it is finished, it is a white pyramid standing 12 feet high. They make a cross from skis. They plant it on top. Atkinson reads the burial service. "Man that is born of a woman hath but a short time to live, and is full of misery. He cometh up, and is cut down, like a flower. The wind picks up. It whistles through the skis. It is the only music they have." They march further south. They are looking for Captain Oates. They find his sleeping bag 20 miles away. It is slit open, as if he struggled to get his swollen feet into it. But they do not find his body. The blizzard has taken him. He has become part of the barrier. They build a smaller cairn near the spot where he walked out of the tent. They place a note inside. "Hereabouts died a very gallant gentleman, Captain L.E.G. Oates, of the Inniskilling Dragoons. In March 1912, returning from the Pole, he walked willingly to his death in a blizzard to try and save his comrades beset by hardships." It is a simple epitaph, but it creates a legend. The story of Oates' sacrifice becomes the moral center of the expedition. He didn't just die, he gave his life. It is the ultimate expression of British stoicism. They turn north. They leave the two cairns alone in the vast whiteness. The great white silence closes in behind them. February 1913, New Zealand. The Terra Nova returns to civilization. The world is waiting. Everyone expects a triumph. They expect Scott to come down the gangplank, waving the Union Jack. Instead, the ship flies the flag at half-mast. The news breaks. Scott dead. Disaster in the Antarctic. The shock is global. But then, something strange happens. The diaries are published. The letters are read in St. Paul's Cathedral. The public reads Scott's final words. They read about the blizzard. They read about Oates walking into the snow. And the narrative shifts. Scott is not seen as a failure. He is seen as a martyr. Roald Amundsen, the man who won the race, is sidelined. He is seen as a professional, efficient, but cold. He used dogs. He raced. Scott is seen as the noble amateur, the man who struggled against impossible odds, the man who refused to abandon his sick friends. Amundsen himself realizes this. The British are bad losers, Amundsen says bitterly, but they are magnificent at dying. He knows that in death, Scott has stolen the glory. Scott becomes a national saint. Statues are built, schools are named after him. He becomes the symbol of a generation that is about to march into the trenches of World War I. His story teaches them how to die with dignity. January 1913. Before leaving Antarctica forever, the surviving men build one final monument. They carry a massive beam of Australian Jarrah wood up Observation Hill, overlooking the Great Ice Barrier. It is heavy. It takes days to drag it up the frozen scree. They plant it at the summit. It faces south, toward the cairn, toward the pole. They carve the names of the 5 dead men: Scott, Wilson, Bowers, Oates, Evans, and below the names they carve a line from Tennyson's Ulysses. It was suggested by Cherry Garrard, the man who survived the worst journey in the world. The words are simple, defiant, and tragic. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. It is the perfect epitaph for the Edwardian age. They stand by the cross. They look out over the ice one last time. They see the beauty of it, the pink light on the mountains, the smoke from Mount Erebus. They hate it, and they love it. It is a good place to rest, Atkinson says. They turn and walk down the hill. They board the ship. They sail away. The tent is still there, buried under 100 years of snow. It has moved. The Great Ice Barrier is a flowing river of ice. By now, the cairn is deep within the shelf, slowly moving toward the ocean. One day, perhaps in 100 years, the ice will calve, an iceberg will break off, and the bodies of Robert Falcon Scott, Edward Wilson, and Bertie Bowers will be carried out to sea. They will finally complete their journey. History has been hard on Scott. We now know the mistakes he made: the ponies, the rations, the man-hauling. We know that Amundsen was the better polar traveler, but efficiency is not the only measure of a man. Scott showed us something else. He showed us the capacity of the human spirit to endure, to keep writing when your fingers are freezing, to keep walking when your feet are dead, to look death in the eye and not blink. The race to the South Pole was a tragedy of errors, but the march home was a triumph of the will. In the end, Scott didn't conquer the pole. He conquered himself. And in the white silence of the South, that is the only victory that matters.